Okay, I'm getting into a little bit of a rhythm of doing this again with some consistency. Um, and that feels really good. So, I was thinking this morning about turning on the camera and talking about what I want to talk about. And I So a while ago, I started like kind of dabbling with talking more publicly or like in a social media content type of space, topics that I talked about or I was studying a lot in school for my undergrad thesis, which was a lot about ethnography and writing and form. And I felt very torn between um, topical interests. By that, I mean, like, someone could be very fixatedly interested in um, computers, and that is a topic. But then there's like how you learn about computers. So, kind of like theory versus practice. And I kind of walked the line a bit and then realized that I was much more interested in the theory side of things. Um, and it's interesting because a lot of the time theory gets a bad rap because it feels like it can't be applied to anything. But then on the other side, it's like without having deep thought into why we're doing anything, um, there's kind of no point to what we're doing, and we can't have knowledgeable conversations. And it really does come full circle when I think about going back to grad school, because grad school gives you all this language that you didn't have before. And yes, it gives you skills, but I think the skills are rooted in the knowledge and the language that you have that you didn't have before, and the concepts and the frameworks. Um, anyway, rabbit hole tangent, didn't need to be there, but um, in school, I got very interested in kind of the theory behind how we write about people and how we write about lived experiences. So, kind of not necessarily a creative writing focus or I mean, any liberal arts degree, you're going to have a focus on writing. But I was kind of more interested in how you would construct a text, specifically texts that are more disjointed or have like an experimental element to them, that about how they're put together. Um, and I think I find it a really compelling area because there's this desire to tell a perfect story. And there's this desire to have all the pieces fit into place perfectly, but that feels so divorced from the reality that most people experience. And it feels very divorced from and replicating or reflecting the experience of being alive and being a person. And so, while it's maybe more difficult to read something that he either has an unreliable narrator or jumps around or is hard to follow, that is a usually a more accurate reflection of what it means to live a human life. And so that's why I like thinking about how do you make something that is accessible enough for people to understand a message, but reflective enough of the disjointed nature of the lived human experience to feel like it's real and genuine and whatnot. Um, for some reason, I'm thinking of Haruki Murakami because I like Haruki Murakami a lot, but there are so many examples of this. I think I haven't read Moby Dick, but Moby Dick I think is an example. There's just so many different avenues that you could take it to kind of talk about more experimental orientations toward text. But what I really like is, and what I think is reflected in a lot of Murakami novels, is this idea of like very, very lucid prose or lucid fiction or vignette where you're like completely immersed and then there's some sort of disconnect where you're like, wait, what's going on, and what am I reading, and how did that happen? Or am I just reading like pages and pages and pages of something very dry and almost nonfiction, and then you go back and you have this hyper real human story vignette experience, which I don't think I'll ever be able to write something that's that intentional. maybe with enough time and commitment, but in general, I don't think that will be something that I ever put together. But I do think as I continue writing, not often enough, but as I continue writing and kind of cobbling something together, I feel the need to remind myself that there's plenty of precedent set for something that is not a completely coherent story, or that doesn't have every single piece of the puzzle perfectly in place. And like any art, the expectation that something would be perfect right off the bat is not feasible. I think sometimes art and writing feel distinct, and they really shouldn't be, because a writer needs to allow the same grace of an unfinished canvas. Like no fine artist would ever say that something is finished or perfect, and I don't think that you can expect that from a book or a piece of writing. If we were constantly or even somewhat imposing the need for some sort of finished thing onto ourselves, we wouldn't leave anything to come back to, and then we wouldn't have the craft anymore. So I feel compelled to put this into this space because I really want to clear as much path and space for myself to finish some sort of collection of writing. It's just hard because I really want to have it be something that can be created and birthed into the world, rather than me sharing it piecemeal in this area on Substack. My dad wrote a book and he published it. He self-published it. But like by self-publish, I mean like he printed it and he found a publisher, and I don't know how the funding went, but he found a publisher who like published it, but it was self-published, if that makes any sense. I don't really know how that works, actually. I guess like maybe it was like wasn't a great publisher. I guess I could actually reach out to that publisher and see if they would publish something I had. I don't know. I remember a lot about the whole process of it because he had someone he was working with who was helping him write the book. And it's very bizarre. Like it's I still have to this day have not read the book. And it feels unfair. I feel a little robbed because I'm like, well, I want to write something, and now I feel like I have this like looming thing of him having written something, which I don't even think was probably that good, but you know, who's any of us to say whether something's good or not? And is that why we pursue it? And is that why we put it out into the world? No. But it's just hard to realize my own thing and my own vision when, I don't know. So anyway, I'm going to stop here today because I'm not feeling super well all of a sudden. And yeah, I'll sneak in some accountability moments. Oh, there's like a whole thing also about like full story and I don't know. Yeah. Nice. This might not be the most interesting topic to follow, but it is important for me to put this out into the world in this format as I try to finish more writing and piece things together and try to put something coherent into a final form. Anyway,